this is Jen from Winrose Fiber Studio, and welcome to How to Crochet lesson number 2. In lesson 1, we learned how to hold the crochet hook and the yarn right-handed and left-handed, and we started working on chaining. I asked everyone to create 5 chains that were each 65 inches long, and we're going to be using those chains to weave them into our scarf pattern today. For lesson 2, you will need your medium weight yarn from lesson number 1 along with your 5mm crochet hook. I am going to use a bulky weight yarn. This is Lion Brand Thick and Quick, and a 6.5mm crochet hook, just while I'm showing you how to work a single crochet. I wanted to use a larger yarn to make it easier for you to see. I'm starting off by chaining 13. These stitches will become the foundation for our first row. Here I have the front side of my chain, and if I flip it over, these are the back loops, and I'm just counting to make sure I have 13 chains. We will be working into these back loops. Now I am sure that you have seen people just working their hook right into the front of a chain like this, but I prefer working into the back loops because that means this pretty chain becomes the edge of your piece. This is what we want to see on the edge. So we'll begin working in the second chain from the hook. So if I count, there's the first bump, and I'm going to work into the second bump right there. And I work my single crochet by just inserting the hook under the bump. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull up a loop, then yarn over again and pull through both loops on my hook. Let's do it again. I insert my hook into the next bump, and the yarn is kind of right there for me to grab and pull up a loop, and then I pass my hook in front of the yarn. You can see how I'm passing it in front, yarn over, and pull through both loops on my hook. In the US and Canada, we call this a single crochet. In the UK, this is referred to as a double crochet. I will include a link in the description below to a list that breaks down the term differences between the US and Canada and the UK. As you can see, I have switched to my left hand so I can show you how to work a single crochet left-handed. I had one extra chain on my hook. One of the things I love about crochet is it's very easy to remove a stitch. And now I'm just going to work into that back bump. Once again, it's the second chain from the hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then I'm going to yarn over again and pull through both loops on the hook. Now I wish I looked more natural crocheting left-handed, but one of the things that I have noticed as I'm trying to demonstrate left-handed crochet is that I'm making some mistakes that maybe some of you are making too. I'm not quite turning my hook enough, so it's getting caught on the yarn, and my tension is also a little tight, so I'm having to work a little bit harder. In the end, right-handed or left-handed, you should have 12 single crochets that look just like this. And now let's take a moment to practice how we would work into these single crochet stitches. I'm going to chain 1 and turn, and the reason for that is that the height of a single crochet is approximately the height of a single chain 1. Now on row 2, We are working into our single crochet stitches from row 1, which means we'll be working under 2 threads of yarn. The single crochet is worked in the same way. Insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. There will be 2 loops on your hook, then yarn over and pull through these 2 loops. If you pull gently on the work, you can see a space opening. Your hook should pass easily through this space and under the top 2 threads of the single crochet from the previous row. Take a minute or 2 to practice this new skill because we are about to start our project. Okay, so here we are, just 6 minutes in, and we're ready to start crocheting our scarf. I decided to keep using my bulky weight yarn for now, just while I show you the scarf pattern, because it's easier to see. So we're going to begin with a chain of 25. Take your time, focus on making a beginning chain that is not too tight or too loose, but nice and even. And because we're just getting started, go ahead and take a moment to count and make sure you have 25 chains. For the first row, we are going to be working a single crochet into the 9th stitch from the hook. You can see that I'm using a scrap piece of yarn to mark that back loop to make it easy for me to find. You could also use a stitch marker, or you could skip the loop marker altogether. After single crocheting into that back loop, we're going to chain 5, skip 3 stitches, and single crochet into the next stitch. And this is going to be our pattern across. Chain 5, skip 3 stitches, and then single crochet into the next stitch. We're working into the back loops of our beginning chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Skip 3 stitches, 1, 2, 3, and in we go into the next stitch. One more time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, skip 3 stitches, and we should be working into that last back loop, the last stitch left on the chain. Okay, so that is row 1. Let's have a quick look. So for row 1, we have our nice looking edge because we worked into the back loops. And you can see we have 5 loops on our chain. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is row 1. So now for row 2, we're going to chain 5 and turn our work. And from now on, we're going to be working our single crochets into the loops. So the first single crochet will go into that first loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and then chain 5. Then we single crochet into the next loop. In between each single crochet, we'll be chaining 5, and then the single crochet into the next loop. Each row will create 5 loops. Let's have a quick look at the end of row 2. You can see that the first loop on each row is a little off to the side, so the loops are slightly offset from each other. But this is the entire pattern, so from now on all you'll do is chain 5, turn, single crochet in the first loop, chain 5, single crochet in the next loop across. So this scarf really couldn't be easier. Once you get comfortable, you'll be able to sit back and relax and just crochet. So at the end of each row, make sure you have 5 loops. Let me take just a few minutes and show you how to get started left-handed. I've got my beginning chain of 25. We'll be working our first single crochet into the 9th stitch from the loop. This time, instead of a little scrap piece of yarn, I'm using a stitch marker. Our first single crochet goes into that 9th stitch from our hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop, and then yarn over and pull through both loops on our hook. I'll include a link below for the stitch markers. So there's our first loop, and now just like you saw with the right hand, you're going to chain 5, and then we're going to skip the next 3 back loops and work a single crochet into the next stitch. 1, 2, 3, and there's our stitch. Insert your hook into the back loop. Be careful not to let your work twist. And then work your single crochet. We've got 2 loops complete, and now we chain 5. Skip the next 3 back loops and then insert your hook into the 4th and work your next single crochet. We have 2 more to go. Chain 5. Skip 3 stitches and single crochet into the next stitch. Okay, now we're on our last loop and we're going to chain 5. Now one of my chains is a little larger than I want it to be, so I'm just going to pull out a couple of chains and rework them. And now we're about to cross the finish line for row 1. Insert our hook into that last loop, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through 2. Okay, so here's our first row. We have 5 loops on that beginning chain, and now we're on to row 2. For row 2, we're going to chain 5. And then turn our work. And now we get to start working our single crochets into our loops. So our first single crochet is going to go into that first loop. Chain 5. And work a single crochet into the next loop. And we'll keep working our way across with this pattern. Chain 5, single crochet into the next loop until your row has 5 loops. You can see by the end of this second row, I'm starting to get a little more comfortable with my left-handed chaining. This is very exciting. And here we are on the last loop, our last single crochet of row 2. Let's have a quick look. You may find it helpful to mark the first loop of each row with a stitch marker, or the last loop, just to help you keep your place. Okay, now that everyone is set, repeating row 2 until their scarf is 60 inches long, I am going to jump in and work on my scarf. I have my 5 chains and I'm going to make my scarf in this pretty green. I'm going to leave a link to all of the yarn I'm using for my scarf in the description below. You can see I've got my 5 chains, so I need to make my 5 loop scarf. I'm going to speed through this because everyone already knows how to make their pattern. I just thought you might enjoy seeing me work up my scarf in a medium weight yarn using the same size hook that you are using. So I've got a medium or number 4 weight yarn and a 5mm hook. In the US, it's often called an H or size 8. I'm going to do a few rows and then I'll go off and sit in my favorite chair and just relax and crochet. And now I'm coming back to you with my scarf just a few stitches away from completion. After you finish your very last single crochet, go ahead and cut your working yarn, leaving 6 to 8 inches. And then we're just going to pull this tail in through that loop and pull tight. Here's my scarf. I have folded it in half and then in half again, and I've done the same with one of my chains so that you can see I have plenty of chain to weave through the scarf. If you wanted to, you could call your scarf done just as it is, perhaps add a pretty little fringe on the end, and you'd have a lovely finished project. But for our project, we're going to add a little more color, a little more texture, and we're going to weave in our 65-inch chains. So whether you're coming from the right or the left, we're going to turn our hook around and use the blunt end to weave through the loops. You can see I'm just going to go in and out. And with this side row, you're sort of going in a larger loop and out a smaller loop. The loop right next to the side is a little bit smaller. In and out, in and out. And just keep going until your hook is full. Now I'm going to use the hook side to grab a hold of my chain, and I'm just going to pull it through the scarf. And it goes right through. Actually, when I tried this for the first time, I was really wondering if it would work, and I was thrilled to find that it worked really well. Just with that little bit of pink, I feel like the scarf is already starting to look more exciting. So make sure you pick up where you left off. I'm going in the large loops, out the small, in and out. And once your hook feels full, you'll just repeat the same thing you just did. Just grab your chain towards the end, loop it over your hook, and just pull it through. You can take a moment each time and check your work and make sure you haven't skipped a loop. If you make a mistake, not to worry. It's easy to pull out and start again. So in just 4 or 5 passes, you can have this entire chain woven into your scarf. It turns out a crochet hook makes a pretty nice weaving tool. So I'm just working my way across the scarf, making sure that the tension is even going across. I only need an inch or two of chain on either end. I actually have a little bit more than I need. And now we're going to move on to the next color. Because the loops are a little offset, you do need to be careful and make sure that you're working your hook back and forth. Let's take a closer look. So you can see I'm going to go in this stitch and it's almost like a little zigzag. Down, up, down, up. So I'm going to go ahead and speed up and work all 5 of my chains through my scarf. Just take your time with this. Remember, once again, if you make a mistake, it's easy to pull it out and try again. But before you know it, you'll have all 5 of your chains worked through your scarf. I would love to see your color choices. My Instagram is in the description below if you would like to share pictures with me. With all 5 of our chains woven through, now we're ready to move on to the very last step, which is to create a pretty fringe for our scarf. To make your fringe, you will need 10 sets of strands. Each will have 5 pieces of yarn and they'll be 12 inches long. You can see I have 2 for each of my colors. You'll start by clipping off your chain, and you only need to leave about an inch. Then you need to unravel this little length of chain. One end of the chain will unravel easily, and the other end, I find it's helpful to use a yarn needle to pull out the loops. So when you've pulled out enough of your chain that it meets the end of your scarf, then enlarge that last loop a little bit. You're going to take the tail end and put it through that loop at the end of your scarf, and then feed it through the remaining loop on the chain and pull tight. Now your chain is secured to the scarf on this end. Now take a set of your prepared fringe pieces. Remember, it was 12 inches long. We're going to fold it in half. And then I'm going to take my hook from the underside of the scarf and grab the fold of the fringe. And then I'm going to pull the end pieces along with the tail end through the loop. And that just forms a simple slip knot and will secure your fringe to your scarf. I'm going to speed up as I work the rest of the fringe on this side of the scarf. Notice how I fold up that remaining length of chain so it's right there ready and waiting to be pulled through with the fringe. When you reach the loop that also contains your beginning or ending tail ends of your scarf, go ahead and weave that length, in my case it's green, through and just include it in with your fringe. So you can see I've got my fringe pieces and that little piece of green yarn there, and I'm just pulling them all through, and I'm just letting that tail end blend in with my fringe. Now I want to tidy up my fringe and cut them all to be the same length. Once I do this, I'll repeat the same process for the other end of my scarf. You have just completed your first project. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it challenging, but not too difficult. I hope you have a scarf that you'll love wearing or giving as a gift. You're about to see me be a little extra and trim off those slightly long pieces of orange yarn. This is a scarf I designed just for beginner students because it's a nice way to get started. Chaining and single crochet, no ends to weave in, and you have this cute finished project that you can be so proud of. If you enjoyed this lesson and this project, please consider hitting the like button and subscribing to my channel. I'll be sharing new videos on Tuesdays, and I can't wait to share more patterns with you. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next time.